Hi everyone, Salesforce Admin Training Day 28. Let's see what we are going to learn today. Today's agenda is, we'll go through the previous session overview, and today's topic is validation rule. We'll see what is the validation rule, how to create a validation rule, purpose of the validation rule, and then we'll talk about the trial headings and interview questions. Now, validation rules, there are two types of a validation rule. One is a client-side validation, and second one is server-side validation. Client-side validation is nothing but a browser. So let's take a scenario in Salesforce application. If I am entering certain data here, so let's say first name, last name, and email ID. As soon as I click on a submit, so Salesforce is going to cross-verify only in the client side. That means backend of this page, there is a script is written. The JavaScript is written, which is going to cross-verify the information whether the data has been entered correctly or not. So as soon as I click on a save button here, so it will be immediately will be shown an error in case if it is a not valid or if you have not entered the information, it will immediately shows, which is called client-side validation. And the next one is server-side validation. So server-side validation is nothing but database server. So that means as soon as the data is entered in the client side, it has to go to the database. So in order to go to the database, in between we have a business logic. So it will touch the business logic and then it goes to the database. And once it is, while entering the data inside the database, in case if there are any error, right? So for example, there is some error is occurred while inserting the data in database. So if there are any error, it will return back and send it to business logic. From business logic, it will receive information into the client side. So that means server side is nothing but where it is going to touch the database and it will respond to the client. So which is called as a server-side validation. Server-side validation always talks about the database server, whereas client-side validation is only the browser side. Whatever actions we are performing it here, only in the client side, we are doing the validation. So two type of a validation, client side and server side. Now, so take a notes of it. Now let's say here, validation rule, the client side, I have a server side. This is the database. In the database, I have an account object. And in client side, we have a account name, rating, industry, annual revenue. And then we have a save button, cancel button. Assume that data is entered in the account name, rating, and industry, and annual revenue. Some information is entered here. So once we click on a save button, it will be inserted inside the account object and the record gets inserted here. Right. So whenever it is talking to the database means it's a server side validation. Without interacting the database, if I'm only validating within this, which is called as a client side, Now, validation, how can we do it in Salesforce? Only in the client side. So I can directly implement in Salesforce validation rule. So in order to implement a validation in the Salesforce, let me connect to the Salesforce. Now click on login button. Now let's assume that I wanted to create a validation rule on the account object. If I want to create a validation on the account object, I need to first select the object account. So we have a client, right? So client is nothing but an account. Now here we have an option which is called validation rule. So select the object and choose the validation rule option. So if you click on the validation rule, now navigation is object manager, select the object and choose the option here called validation rule. Now click on this validation rule. Now it will be initially it will be blank. Now as soon as you click on a new button, what will happen? It will open up the file and it will ask you to create a validation rule. Now whenever we are creating a validation rule, there are different type of functions are there. Now in the validation rule, the first one is rule name. What is the rule name? And whether active equal to true or not. Now next one is a description. This is a general information for the future purpose. Whatever the rule I am creating it, what is the purpose of it is going to enter in the description. Now this is error condition. Now error condition is nothing but I need to check if I wanted to verify any logic. So the logic has to be implemented in the condition formula. In order to implement a logic in the condition formula, we have to take a help of function. We have to take a help of function. Now these functions, we need to drag it onto the formula field. We need to drag it onto the formula field and then enter the condition, whatever the condition I wanted to implement it, enter the condition and check the syntax. If the syntax is, that means whatever the syntax we have written here, if the syntax is properly implemented, then it will give you the true. Otherwise, it will give you the error. Now, in case if the syntax is right, now, then what is the error message I wanted to show on the account page? Or wherever which are the object I wanted to show, what is the error object and where do I wanted to show the validation rule. Now let's take one of the function here called Boolean, right? So before that, what is the purpose of validation rule? Validation rule is basically already Salesforce is doing the validation, right? Salesforce is if there are any mandatory fields are there. And if user is not entered, already Salesforce is showing me that please enter the values. This is a required field. Now, apart from those standard validation, if we want to customize it, if I want to implement a validation based on the requirement, if we want to implement our own validation rule, custom validation rule, then what we will do, we will go for a validation implementation. Whatever the implementation is there, we will do the validation here. Now, let's assume that I wanted to check the isBlank. IsBlank is nothing but whether the data is available in that field or not. I wanted to check whether the field is available, data is available in that particular field or not. Now, so in order to check that, we have to use the function called isBlank. So this function is used to check whether the specified field is blank or not. Now it returns true if the field is empty, else it returns false. Example is blank name, whether the name is value is there in the name or not. Is blank contact number, whether the value is there in the contact number or not. Is blank HR email ID, whether the email ID is available or not. So any of the data you wanted to check. So usually if I want user to be entering the value in the field, then what we will do, we will usually make that field as a mandatory, right? If I want user has to enter the certain information in campaign. Let's say that end date should be entered. Without end date, I should not be clicking on the save button. So I can make it here mandatory, right? Field mandatory. But without making the field mandatory, if I want only, I don't want to make the field as mandatory, or page layout level also, I don't want to make it mandatory. Now I wanted to make it mandatory through the validation rule. In that case, what we can do, we can implement a validation rule. If I implement a validation rule, what will happen? It will not show the mandatory field. It will not show me the mandatory field. But when you click on a save button, it will ask you that the data has to be entered here. If it is a blank, it will not allow you to save. Right? So those kind of validations we can implement in the validation rule. Now, if I keep on implementing the validation rule, how many can I implement a validation rule? How many can I implement validation rule per object? So per object, we can implement 150 validation rules. Per object, we can implement 150 active validation rules. Inactive, you can have it. As many as inactive, you can have it. But active one should be 150. Take a notes of it. Done? Taking the notes? Let's say, for example, use cases, create a validation rule on the account object to make sure account number value should be required. That means whenever the account is created or updated, system has to cross-verify account number should be having a value. Account number should be having a value. Now here account number is nothing but client number. So this value should be there. Now let's go ahead and implement. Now let's say here validate account number. Validate account number. Now how can I validate? I'll specify here isBlank. IsBlank insert, and the expression is insert field account number insert. And just verifying it isBlank account number. And check the syntax. No errors. That means I'm checking here if the account number is a blank. If the account number is a blank, then I should show error message. Enter valid account number. Enter valid account number. Where do you want to show the error message? On top of the page or on the field level? On top of the page or on the field level. If I say field level, it is going to show on the field level. If I say top of the page, it is going to show on top of page. Let's use the top of page. Click on your save. Now, validation rule has to be activated. So while creating the validation rule only, we have mentioned the active. So only the active validation rules works on the to cross verify the validation. Now, if I say here, I'm going to edit the existing record. Let's say edit. Now detail page. Now here I'm going to edit the information. Let's say I'm going to select the type, prospect, and click on save. Now it is showing me the top of the page, enter valid account number. Now I need to choose where is the field, because on the top of page it is showing that I need to enter the account number. Now there are so many fields are there. I need to identify where is the field. So sometimes it is hard when you place the validation rule on top of the page. So that's the reason in the real time what we will do. If it is only one field is mandatory, then we will specify the field name and we will specify here account number. Click on it, save. Now this time if I try to edit, and click on the detail section. And let's say here client number I'm not entering, type is a prospect, click on a save. Now it is showing me on the field level. Now if I click on the top of page also, it is going to redirect me on this particular field. So in real time, mostly we will say that error location is on the field. Let's assume that if I wanted to same validation rule. Now this is account number is mandatory for the existing records as well as if I try to create any record. As well as if I try to create any new record. For the new record also the name is number is mandatory. Let's say here I'm going to say client name is validation. Now if I click on a save, for the new record also it is going to show me error. Enter the valid account number. So it is showing me on the existing record as well as the new record. Let's assume that I wanted to make sure that it has to work only for the new record. That means only for the new records, I need to cross verify the account number. Existing records, account number, we can leave it. That means we do not want to have the account number. So account number, we do not want to check for the existing records. Account number, we have to check only for the new records. Only for the new records, we wanted to check account number. For the old one, we do not want to check. Only for the new one, we have to check. So in that case, what we have to do is, so in that case, what we can do is click on the edit button. Now let's say here, I just wanted to cross verify only for new records. So there is a function is available here, isNew. Click on this isNew, comma, isBlank. That means if it is a new record and if the account number is a blank, then only show the error message. Now in that case, how can we do it? I need to, both the conditions has to be true. Both the conditions has to be true. IsNew and isBlank account number. Now if I want to check both the conditions, then what we have to do? If I click on this check syntax error, comma. So it is giving me the error. So usually what we will do, I need to check both the condition. This condition and this condition, both the conditions has to be true. Now for that case, we have to use the AND function. And first condition is true and the second condition is also true. Click on the check syntax. Now there is no error. Right, we are checking the two conditions, click on a save. Now in this case, let's see that now if I am opening any existing record and click on the detail section, click on the edit button. Now here it is a client number is there. Let's take any existing one which does not have a client number. Detail section. Now here also client number is there. Let me take any new account. So let's say Salesforce. Salesforce should not have any client number. Okay, this is not there. This is the existing record. Now, if I try to update the type, it should allow me. Click on save. It should allow me to save the record because the condition which we have verified only for the new record and the account number is blank. That means the validation only works on the new records. Click on the new button and let's say here I'm going to create a new client name is, let's say, Google, and I'm not entering the client number. Prospect rating is hot, industry is agriculture. Click on save. Now it shows the client number is mandatory. I'm going to enter G1002. Click on save. So that's how we are going to utilize the functions, whatever the functions are available. So that's how we are going to utilize the functions to cross verify. Now let's see a few more scenarios. Now before that, let's take a homework. Create a validation rule on the opportunity object to make sure the tracking number value should be required. So you need to create a tracking number on the opportunity. And then whenever the opportunity is created or updated, this tracking number should be shown as a required field that you need to implement it through the validation rule. Take a notes of it. Now let's see navigation steps which we have already seen. Now the next function is Boolean is null. Now we already seen a isBlank. Now we know the differences between the isBlank and isNull. IsNull is only works for the number, isBlank is works for the number as well as the text. Now similarly isNull, if you want to cross verify it. So if you, for example, this function is going to return true if the specified number field is value is empty. Right? So example is null annual revenue. Annual revenue is a number field. So if you want to cross verify if the number is null or not. Now let's see the use case. Create a validation rule on the lead object to make sure the annual revenue value is required. Now let's take this as an assignment. It's a simple, straightforward. So on the lead object, we have an annual revenue. So let's go and check. Now lead and open any existing lead record. Now we should be having an annual revenue. Go to the detail section. So here is the annual revenue. So what you need to do, you need to check whether there is a value or not. If it is a null, then you need to show the error message. So how you are going to implement for this condition in the validation rule? In the validation rule, you will specify is null, and then you are going to pass annual revenue. Annual revenue. So if you say this, then what will happen? It is going to show me the error message. While creating it or while updating it, it will show the error message. Right? So that's the assignment. Take this.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
I have a doubt, ma'am.
Yes.
Like once we create the field, right? What is the use for validation? We can if we want to make a field mandatory, we can just click the required field, right? So
Mhm.
what is the use for the mandatory? We can do it by while we're creating the field, right? So what is the difference, ma'am?
So let's assume that we have a different profiles, right? So I don't want to show the mandatory for system admin. For other profiles, I wanted to show it as a mandatory. How can
Okay.
you achieve it? Will you
So
able to do that? Now
no.
we have a profile. Two profiles are there. One is a system admin profile, another one is a sales consultant. Now, for system admin, we should not show the mandatory. So no mandatory for this. For Salesforce consultant, we wanted to show the mandatory. Now, how do you do that? Will you able to implement it through the page layout? You will not be able to implement it through the page layout or field level also you cannot make it required. In that case, using the validation rule, click on the insert. Here you have a profile. Now profile name equal to, if it is not equal to system admin, not equal to system admin, then show this error message. Right, so in this case, what will happen? System admin, it will not show any error.
Okay. So in real time, we can we will get these kind of requirements, ma'am.
Yes.
Can we get? Acha, okay.
Let's see another use case. So create a validation rule on the position object to make sure maximum budget should be always higher than the minimum pay. Now, how do you implement this position object? First of all, where you will write the validation rule? Where you will implement the validation rule for the second one? Create a validation rule on the position object to make sure maximum budget should be always higher than the minimum pay. So how do you implement this?
Is null. We can use is null.
First of all, where do you implement a validation rule?
On the position object.
Position object.
Position object, madam.
Right. Now, what is the validation condition? You will write it here. Maximum budget should be higher than the minimum pay. What is the validation?
If condition, madam.
So what you are going to write it here, the validation rule. In generic, maximum budget should be always higher. How do you write?
Greater than.
Greater than like maximum
If
budget.
greater than less.
So you are going to say here, maximum budget if it is a greater than minimum pay. Right? So that means minimum pay has to be less and maximum pay has to be higher. So we need to make sure that maximum budget is always higher than the minimum pay. That means if it is less than minimum pay. Right? So if we have to make sure maximum budget should be always greater than minimum pay. That is a positive. Now, anytime if the maximum budget is less than minimum pay, then we need to show immediately the error. So maximum budget is less than minimum pay, show the error message. Now let's see here. Let's go to the object. Now let's say here position. Now position object, fields and relationship. Now click on the new button. Now why in relationship? Validation rule. In the validation rule, click on the new button. Now let's say here, I'm going to cross verify. Verify maximum budget. Right, so I'm going to insert the field. Do I have a maximum, minimum? Yeah, maximum, insert, and then operator less than minimum pay. Insert. Check the syntax. No error found. Now I'm going to write here maximum budget should be always higher than minimum pay. Top of page, click on a save. Let's go to the position. Now validation rule is active. It is active. Now let's say here Salesforce developer. Now click on the edit. I'm going to modify the maximum pay and minimum pay. Let's say here maximum pay, I'm going to say 1 lakh, which is less than this. Click on save. It says that maximum budget should be higher than the minimum pay. So anytime if the maximum pay is less than minimum pay, immediately it is going to throw an error. Now, another one which we have is changed. Is changed. Now, sometimes what happens is you wanted to apply a validation rule, but validation rule, if I do not change the, for example, this data is already there. Now, assume that I'm just changing the another field. I'm not touching that field. I'm not touching the, whatever the validation rule field is there, I'm not touching that. I'm touching a different field and click on the save button. Even if I touch a different field, still we are able to see the validation error related to this, right? Now, in case I wanted to hit this validation rule only when the changes happened on that particular field. Only the changes happened on that particular field, then only I wanted to show the error message. So is changed field name is, this function is used to check the specified field value has been changed. Now, if I have implemented a validation rule on the annual revenue, now only fire me the validation rule if I'm changing the annual revenue. If I'm not changing the annual revenue, do not fire the validation rule. So is change is going to check whether this particular field value has been changed or not. If it is changed, then fire the validation rule. If it is not changed, then do not fire the validation rule. See, let's say use case is create a validation rule to prevent the user to change the HR record name. Now here in the hiring manager, we have a hiring manager. Discard the changes. Now here we have a hiring manager. Now in this hiring manager, now we have a detail section, hiring manager name. Now if I change this name, then only the fire the validation rule. If I'm not changing this value, I'm changing the another values. Do not fire the validation of hiring manager name. Now let's go ahead and check this. Object manager, hiring manager. Click on the hiring manager. Now click on this fields and relationship. Now click on the new button. Why I'm going to the fields and relationship. So let's go to the validation rule. Click on the new button. Now here we need to cross verify the hiring manager record name. Now let's say validate HR record name. Validate HR record name. Now here I'm going to say, I need to cross verify if it is a changed, if is changed, if the field is HR manager record name. Now if the hiring manager name is changed, then only fire the validation. Then only fire the validation saying that do not make any changes to the hiring manager record. Check syntax. Now here, do not make any changes to the hiring manager name. Now top of the page or a field, let's keep it as a field. Field is hiring manager name. Click on save. Now here, I'll click on the hiring manager. Let's refresh. Detail section, and let's assume that I'm changing the location. If I change a location to the Noida, now click on a save. It is not firing. But if I change here, Manisha 123, if I click on the save button, immediately it is going to tell me that do not make a changes to the hiring manager. So that means fire a validation rule only when that particular field value is changed, then only fire the validation rule. Otherwise, do not fire the validation rule. Now, next function is text function. Now, text field name, that means this function is used to get currently selected value from the pick list. Now, let's assume the text field is nothing but I have some value. I have some value is there or some field value is there. Whatever that field, maybe the field is a pick list field, maybe the field is a multi-pick list field, maybe the field is a text area number, whatever it might be. Now, finally convert that value into the text. Finally, convert that value into the text. So in order to use that, so we have to use the text. Right, so let's see the use case. Use case is create a validation rule to make sure the contact record lead source field is required. So validation rule is to make sure the contact record lead source field is required. Now let's say that if I need a lead source field, whatever the lead source field is there, that should have some data. If it is not there, then I should, if there is a no value in the lead source, then I need to give an error message. So take a notes of it, then we will implement a validation rule.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
here I have one doubt. How can we set this validation rule for particular profile?
Yeah, that's what we have shown, right? So you need to specify the profile name. No, I'll show you. Okay, let's take an example. Now, whatever the value is there, lead source, cancel, go to the lead. Now, let me go to the object manager, Let's say here, quick find lead. Click on this lead and let's go to the validation rule. And let's click on the new button. Now here, lead source, I wanted to cross verify. Now let's say lead source. So lead source is the pick list field. Lead source is the pick list field. So whether the lead source is having the value or not. If it is a no value in the lead source, I should show the error message. So usually how do we do that? Is blank, insert, and inside the expression, I'll place the lead source. Insert. Click on the check syntax. Now what it is says that field lead source is a pick list field. Pick list fields are only supported in certain functions. It will not be supported for isBlank. Now what I need to do, I need to first convert this pick list field to the text field. I need to convert pick list field to the text field. So we have a function called text. Insert the text field. Now Control X and then value. Check the syntax. Now error message. Now let's say here is lead source is mandatory. Lead source is mandatory. Field, I'll place it onto the lead source. Click on save. Now if I go to the lead, let's open this lead. Click on this lead. Now lead source I'm not entering, I'm making the changes to the industry and click on the save. Now it says lead source is mandatory because it's a blank. Now if I select any lead source, click on save. Now it will be validated. So text field is to convert from any other, basically we use a text for the pick list field. If you want to convert the pick list field to the text, then you use the text function. And the next one is an AND function, which we have already seen. And condition 1, condition 2 till the condition n. If all the conditions are true, finally the condition is true. If the condition is true, then it will be satisfied. In case if it is a false, if all the conditions are satisfied, then it will be true. If it is not, all the conditions are not satisfied, then it will be a false. So which we have already seen that. And similarly, and we have a OR function. OR function is also like a either one condition is true or this condition is true. That means in AND what will happen? In AND all the conditions are true. Whereas in the OR condition, it returns the true if all the conditions are satisfied. That means in the OR, this is to be true, this true, this is true, this is true. Now, it will go to the false if all of the conditions are failed. All of the conditions are failed. So that is a normal mathematical expression. And the next one we have a NOT function. Now NOT function is, this function is used to change the results from the true to false. Now whatever the output you have, if that output you wanted to check, right? In that case, we have to use the NOT. Now let's say for example, now this is blank, I'm checking it. If it is not a blank, then I wanted to show the error message. If it is a not blank, let's assume that if the lead source is not blank and rating is a blank, if these two conditions has to be verified, that means lead source is not equal to null and rating is equal to null. I wanted to check two conditions. How can we verify the condition? I wanted to check the condition, lead source is not equal to null and rating should be null. In that case, I wanted to show the error message. How can I cross verify that validation? Lead source is not equal to null and rating equal to null. Then I wanted to show the error message. How do I do that?
We have to use both functions, ma'am, and
And
not.
Or
No.
and an or.
Now in that case, what I'll do here, click on this edit. Now I'm going to specify here first not. If it is a not null, comma, is blank rating. Is blank insert. Now here I'm going to use insert rating. Insert rating. Now we are going to check here and then this one. Click on this check syntax. Rating is a pick list field. Now how do I check this? What it is saying that field rating is a pick list field. Pick list field is not supported. Now what should I need to do for this?
Text method. Sorry, function.
Need to convert into the text. So that means I need to use the text function. Check syntax, everything is fine. Now click on this. Let's say field, I'm going to show it on the rating. Click on save. Now instead of lead source is mandatory, I'm going to say that rating is mandatory. Lead rating is mandatory. Click on save. Now let's click on refresh. Now I'm going to edit. Detail section, edit. Let's save this. Now immediately it will say that lead rating is mandatory because lead source is having a value and rating is not null. Now if I say lead source is blank, now will I receive an error?
Ma'am, we will receive.
We will not receive an error because lead source is a blank. Whenever the lead source is blank, rating can be blank, but only when the lead source is not blank, that time rating should have a value. If rating is the blank, then it is going to show the error message. Now take a homework. Create a validation rule on the lead object to make the title field as a required. Second one, create a validation rule on the contact object to make the email field as a mandatory. Create a validation rule to make the amount value is always more than the 20,000 for each opportunity. We need to, whatever the opportunity record is there, every opportunity should have an amount value greater than 20,000. If it is less than 20,000, it should show the error message. Create a validation rule on the account object to make sure the annual revenue should be more than the 44 lakhs. More than 4 lakhs. Create a validation rule on the account object to make sure the annual revenue should be more than 4 lakhs. Now these are the homework, take a notes of it. Now, next use case. This is also take the homework. Create a validation rule on the contact record to make sure email ID field is required if the phone number has been entered. That means on the contact record, if the phone number is entered and email ID is a blank, then show the error message. Take this as a homework. Now, next one is a isNew function. We have already seen the isNew function. So this function is used to check whether user is working on the new record or user is working on the existing record. If it is a return true, if the user is creating the record, else it will return the false. So only it is new is nothing but it is going to fire only on the new records. Take a assignment, create a validation rule on the lead object to make sure the city phone fields are required upon creating the lead record, not for the existing record. Take this assignment. Okay, so now let me show you the profile, how to exclude the profile. Now let's assume that this is the condition is there, right? This is on the lead. On the lead, we have already implemented a condition if lead source is not equal to null and rating is a blank. Now in that case, I wanted to show the error message. Now let's say here, if I click on this web and if I click on the save, it is going to show error message, lead record is mandatory. Let's assume that I wanted to exclude this for the system admin profile. I wanted to exclude this for the system admin profile. In that case, I'll take a profile name, or else you can take a profile ID. Insert now equal to, let's say, system administrator. Let's copy the exact name of it. Click on the setup. Profile. Click on these profiles. Now let's say system admin. Now here I'm going to say system admin. Check syntax. No error found. Right now click on a save. Only the condition I have added here, profile name, if it is not equal to system admin. That means show this error message only to the other profile, not for the system admin. Don't show this validation. That means bypass this validation for the system admin. Now if I click on a save, it is going to work. It will not give any error. Now lead source is a web. And if I try to make any changes to the, let's say, agriculture to appeal, click on a save, I don't have a rating, but still validation rule is can be bypassed. Now somebody asked about this, right? Profile name, how to bypass it.
Yeah, ma'am. I understood. Thank you.
So this is all about the validation rule today. And tomorrow we will see few more. Tomorrow in the sense Monday.
Ma'am, why use the dollar symbol over there? Profile name prefix. Is it prefix?
It's a prefix. When you select the profile, automatically Salesforce is going to add a dollar. So insert. Now I'm going to select here profile. These are the dollar is a global objects. Right, so these are the global objects. So as soon as I select this, any of this, it is automatically adds the dollar profile. Those are the global objects. Any other questions today?
Ma'am, earlier you said on function text function. In that, how we define, ma'am, the particular field is the text function validation.
Text. So if you have a pick list field, if you want to convert the pick list field, you wanted to cross verify whether this pick list field has a blank or not. Right? So in that case, how you are going to verify? You are going to verify the text, right? So if you want to verify the text, isBlank does not work. IsBlank work with the text and number, but this is a pick list field. Pick list field, we cannot verify whether it is a isBlank or not. So for that, if I wanted to convert a text, then what you have to do, you have to convert the pick list field to text. So text of field name.
Ma'am, we cannot apply this text function for the numerical values, right?
You can apply it. So what do you mean by numerical value? So for example, I have a here, click on the new button. On the validation, we have a annual revenue. Annual revenue is a number, but you wanted to convert this into the text. So you can check this text, insert, check the syntax. Now it says that data type formula, data type is text, but in a, here it is a data type is true or false. Incompatible. So you need to accept this text. Yeah, numbers does not work. Expected data type true or false, incomplete with the expected. Annual revenue is a currency. Now let me do one more thing. Instead of annual revenue, let me take account number. Close, let's go to the account. Let's take here client. In the client, go to the validation rule. Validation rule account, let's create a new one. Let's say text. Insert. Now here I'm going to say insert account, account number, insert it, check syntax. And it does not work. Incorrect parameter type function text. Expected number, date, date type, pick list field. So you can pass the number or a date, date time or a pick list.
Yes, ma'am, got it.